What is going on, guys? Matty Ice here again with you. Thanks so much for joining us here on another edition of Football with Flags. We've got another Road to the Knockouts edition for you today, and we are going to go into Group F and talk a little bit about each team and what they need to do in order to try and get out of this group stage to move on to the knockouts. This group consists of Belgium, Croatia, Canada, and Morocco, and I really find this group very intriguing. I think it's going to be very difficult for the two teams that do make it out of the group, just considering it's a very solid talent of play all the way around for all four sides. I really do think that this is a pretty balanced group in terms of just the players that each team has. I think there's a lot of attacking opportunity for a lot of these teams and the chances to go and score a lot of goals. So this group could be very, very exciting to watch in terms of each of the four teams and what they could bring to the table. So let's go ahead and kick it right off with Belgium. Now, for this group, I feel like 7 points is a good number for them. I feel like that they should win the group. Considering, when you look at all of these teams on paper, I do have, I think, the most confidence in Belgium. Even though, again, Croatia made it to the final in 2018, I realize that, Belgium were in the semis and lost to France and very easily could have maybe gotten to that point had they played England on the other side. And remember, they beat England twice, both in the group stage and in the third place game, which, again, remember, Croatia beat England in the other semifinal to get to France in the finals. But for me, I do feel like Belgium still, from top to bottom, should win this group. Yeah, they had a really difficult window. I thought they're in June, coming right off of the club season. But, I think this team's going to be refreshed, looking a lot better come September once they have those last few games before they head out in November. For me, really, I think this is the last chance for this golden generation. It really is. And we've already seen a few of these players fall off the roster or already retire. And there's definitely another wave coming for sure. So it will be very intriguing to see how this team manages that and those expectations, considering that, they have certainly, I think, disappointed people in the past in terms of thinking that this team could go all the way and win a final, whether it was in the Euros or the World Cup. And unfortunately, the farthest that they've gotten is a semifinal in the World Cup, which is still something to be pretty proud about, considering, their country and whatnot in this group. But for others, though, it still just seems to be a bit disappointing and not quite to the expectation that they were hoping for. In terms of their schedule, I really like it. I think that it benefits them well that they've got Canada first, then Morocco, and then Croatia to finish off. I do feel like Croatia is going to be their toughest opponent. However, I would not overlook Canada or Morocco in the slightest, considering both of those teams could give them a run for their money as well. But one thing I do worry about this team is them being able to produce the same amount of quality that they've shown in the group stage of certain tournaments into the knockouts as well. And we've seen them be a little bit inconsistent. And as they've reached, gone farther and farther into some of these knockout stages before, we've seen them kind of slip up and not really play up to the same level that we're used and accustomed to them seeing all the time. And that inconsistency has certainly, I think, been one of their biggest downfalls in terms of them being able to get over some of those humps and find themselves in some unfamiliar territory with some great opportunities to potentially win some hardware. So, I really hope that this team puts on a great show in the group stage, but then I hope they're able to back it up and produce the same amount of quality that they are with whoever they might see in the knockouts as well. But again, I feel like 7 points for them is a really solid number. Probably, I think, in my opinion, defeating Canada and Morocco and then maybe taking a draw against Croatia, or it could be Canada pulling off a draw with them, coming out hot out of the gate and taking a point away, and then them feeling, getting a little bit comfortable later on and maybe defeating both Morocco and Croatia. We'll see. But again, still really like this team. I think they've got a lot of potential still, even though this is, probably the last chance for, some of these veteran guys to go out and, etch their name in history, if you will, and really make a statement. Moving on now to Croatia. We've got Morocco, Canada, and Belgium. And their schedule, again, very friendly schedule, in my opinion, considering these are the top two teams in the group, two European powerhouses. I think 7 points for them is a good number to look at as well. And Croatia, kind of in the same boat. We've seen a few guys already fall off the roster and retire here in the last couple of years. They had a fantastic run in 2018. Remember, they went 3-0 in the group stage, beating Argentina, Nigeria, and Iceland. Went through the knockouts, had a really tough game against Denmark, And of course, we saw them get all the way to the final and, really kind of hurt themselves. They still played a pretty solid game at certain points in those 90 minutes. But, considering there was a few blunders and mishaps, created by themselves, that was really what hurt them, especially in the second half once France got up and took, a 2-goal lead against them. And again, Perisic had a great goal. I believe Mandzukic was the other one that might have had the second one. I can't remember, but still, this team, it was a phenomenal effort. I think for me, though, the biggest question surrounding them is, can they make another run to the final? I'm not entirely sure that they will. I think they're maybe just a bit too aging and a bit too old in terms of just, whether those older legs are still able to make a deep run like this, especially considering some of the youth and inexperience that they've got to help back up this roster as well. Part of me still thinks that they definitely can do it. But I think just in my gut, considering some of the talent and some of these other teams that we're going to see that have kind of bulked themselves up from previous years or some recent tournaments, I think that it's going to be very difficult for Croatia now having a target on their back, being a finalist in this competition, to be able to go out and make the same kind of run that they did and not run into something that maybe is just a little too overpowering, a little too fit against them, especially once they get into the knockouts, say the quarter or the semis. But again, we'll see. Again, I think that Belgium and Croatia, for me, in our early predictions, are the two that are going to make have the best shot to get out of the group, and very well could have two great shots at advancing on. But we're going to have to wait and see what happens from there. Going ahead and moving on now to Canada. We've got Belgium, Croatia, and Morocco in their group schedule. It's going to be a very difficult road for this team. And I think, though, that even while they might have a difficult schedule ahead of them, for those that maybe don't follow CONCACAF as much, I think there's a lot of people that are sleeping on this team. I think Canada has some incredible talent, some really good players, especially in the attacking part of the field. When you look at Alphonso Davies, they've got Kyle Larin still in there, Junior Hoylett, who's always been a favorite of mine. Really enjoyed watching him play. And then, of course, they've got Osorio in the midfield. And again, just mentioning several guys, and somebody else that I really like that I think can make a huge impact for these guys, especially out on the wing and then looking to cut inside, is Tajon Buchanan. I think with the pace that he brings, he is such a threat for this team and could really do some damage, especially if we look at Belgium playing like a 3-4-3 the way they did in 2018. That's a lot of space out on the wing to look to exploit, especially go up against essentially two wing backs or two maybe slower center backs that are playing kind of between an outside back and a center back position. There's a lot of room to exploit there as well. And especially depending on if Croatia play maybe a 4-2-3-1 the way they did in 2018, if they're looking to get those outside backs forward, there's a lot of space that Canada could exploit with Tajon in behind as well, potentially. For me, I do feel like 5 points for them is a good number. If they could pull off two draws against Belgium and Croatia going into the final game with 2 points, it's not ideal, but I think that they'd be sitting very pretty considering what could come out of it. I really do feel like they'll be able to beat Morocco, in my opinion. Just one of the biggest questions I have with this team, though, is will their back line be able to produce the same as their attackers, whether it's their goalkeeping situation or just their back line in general. We do see a lot of attacking presence with this team, and that's very exciting. Really glad they could hopefully go out and score a lot of goals. It's just, can the back line and their team as a unit defend as well? And not get too lazy in defense and look to put too many numbers forward too fast. Sometimes we see teams start to do that, or they get a little lazy as far as getting back into a defensive transition set, and they get exploited because of that. So hopefully Canada doesn't fall into that. I think that this team's really exciting. I do think that there's a possibility they can make it to the round of 16, and if they do, I think they're really going to put on a show in terms of whoever they might play. It's just they've got two very difficult European teams in front of them, and they've got to be able to knock off one of them in order to get through. But again, I think it's been since 1982, since Canada last made it to a World Cup finals. I think they are chomping at the bit to get to this point. Again, they did finish first in the CONCACAF qualification process. So, this team is no joke. They mean business, and I think that they are going to give everyone in this group a run for their money. It's just a question of, can they put 3 games together, score enough goals, and produce some solid stops and defensive play in the back as well to complement that. I think that for me is some of the biggest questions in terms of what's going to happen with this team. But we shall see. Moving on. Finally to Morocco, who's got Croatia, Belgium, and Canada. And this is going to be incredibly difficult for this African side. I'm not entirely sure I have the same confidence in this team that I did in 2018. Again, then they put on a fantastic performance. They lost 2 very difficult games to Iran and Portugal, both 1-0. And then they turned it around and finished 2-2 in a draw with Spain, which was very, very impressive. Even though it wasn't the Spain of old, it's still Spain, and that's something to certainly be proud of. I really do feel like that this group could be more difficult for them than it was in 2018, and not necessarily in the sense that maybe each of the 3 teams are better than the 3 teams they faced in 2018, but that Morocco maybe isn't bringing as strong of a roster to this tournament as they did then. We did see this side lose 3-0 to the U.S. and look a bit shady at times in June in that exhibition. Again, I'm not totally writing Morocco off. I just think for them, this is going to be very difficult and such an uphill battle considering the 3 teams that they're going to have to face. And for me, I do feel like that 4 points would be a good solid number for them. If they could somehow pull off 5, that'd be great. But even in that world, I think, there could be a possibility they pick up 5 and they still don't wind up getting out of the group. But I think 4 is still fairly realistic and a good possibility if these other 3 teams are all playing pretty well and could beat up on each other a little bit. Big question, though, I do have for this team defensively, their stamina versus their goal-scoring opportunities. Again, I think that each of these 3 teams they're going to be facing are probably going to be able to outpossess them, especially Belgium and Croatia. We'll see about Canada. I think it could be a little bit more open, but they're going to have to play consistently on the defensive side of the ball. They're really going to have to make sure that they buckle down, that they're strong both in their aerial defense, but also just, tightening up those gaps and not allowing a lot of balls in behind, as well as sitting too deep. Sometimes we see teams pack it in, but still not be able to close down long-range shots, or, they have certain deflections and things happen against them. So Morocco's really going to have to defend in every aspect and every way of the way, every way possible in terms of just some of the teams that they're going to be going up against, especially with Belgium and Croatia. And then again, we look at all the attacking opportunities that Canada can throw at you as well. So still, it's going to be very difficult. They're going to look to have to counter a lot, in my opinion, and take the advantage of set pieces when possible. I do feel like this team's still going to be able to possess a decent amount, but they just can't afford to lose it in dangerous areas or look to possess and get up into their opponent's final third and then lose it, because each of these 3 teams are going to just jump them as quick as possible in terms of looking to counter back and go against them, looking at the run of play. So it's an uphill battle for sure for Morocco. One thing that I do want to point out, though, that in 2018, the 3 games in the group stage, it looked like they played 3 different formations. That first match, they played a 3-4-3, then went to a 4-2-3-1 against Portugal, and then went to a 4-5-1 against Spain and wound up, taking a 2-2 draw. I really do feel like a 4-5-1 for them would be the most beneficial. They can maybe tweak with a 4-2-3-1 or something like that against Canada, but I'm not entirely sure doing anything else other than a 4-5-1 is going to be beneficial when they're going up against Croatia and Belgium. And I really don't want to see them do a 5-4-1. I think a 4-5-1 could help them tremendously and still be able to overload the midfield without putting too many numbers, because then again, you're looking to sit back maybe a bit too much and really hurt yourself. So, I think a 4-5-1 for them could be very important in terms of their success defending and then looking to break out when possible. But I guess we'll see what happens with Morocco and how they set up. Again, though, a fantastic group all around. Really enjoy these 4 teams. I think it's going to be great to watch them battle against one another and see who comes out, because whichever of the 2 teams are that are able to make it out of the group, they are going to have, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with for sure once they get to the knockout stages. So it's going to be very, very exciting to watch. With that being said, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for this edition. Thanks again so much for joining us, guys. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you would. Stay tuned for more content coming soon. Peace.